Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Faith Positive Nation, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you today someone who has, well, I have a lot of favorite Bible verses, okay? I know I ask my guest every week for one favorite Bible verse. Okay, so today's guest and I share a favorite Bible verse. Now, I sometimes will lean away from this particular verse to go to another one just because I don't want to get bored by saying the same favorite verse every time, right? But today's guest and I share Ephesians 2:10 as one of our favorite verses, and you're going to find out why. My guest today, it has been in digital media. He was in, for a long time, was in digital media with Microsoft and Yahoo, two kind of small companies you might have heard of somewhere before, maybe. He was with them 15 years in digital media. For the last 4 years, he's been doing something really interesting. He formed his own company, and it's rooted in Ephesians 2:10. And he helps business leaders go through this transformation process around sales. And now it involves obviously his digital media background and all, but the name of the company is Masterpiece Sales. So if you want to, while you're listening to this, you can go to masterpiecesales.com and check it out. And there you will find Faith Positive Nation. Help me welcome Paul Flannigan. Paul, welcome to Faith Positive Radio, man.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Paul,
conversation.
Oh, me too. I'm just absolutely delighted. Paul and I met somewhere long ago. How did we meet? Because I know you wound up with a copy of my Work Positive in a Negative World book, which preceded Faith Positive in a Negative World, right? And I had signed it for you and everything. How did you come about that book? Why did I send it to you?
So I had a friend. Well, I have a friend, Tracy Purdue.
Oh, Tracy Purdue. There's the missing link. Okay, I got it now. I've been looking for that answer for months now, and I said. I see. I was too proud to ask. I just knew one day I was going to remember, but here I am in front of the whole world asking you, right? Tracy's a great guy. Tracy's actually been a guest on Faith Positive Radio.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Tracy's. He's got, just a tremendous heart.
Yeah.
And so he introduced me to you through the book. We had a conversation, and it's been a blessing for me. So.
Oh, wow. The blessing's been mine. It's wonderful. Big fan of masterpiecesales.com, so you make sure you go there. Right after this podcast. Tell me what Masterpiece Sales is all about and how Ephesians 2:10 pieces that together there.
Yeah, thank you. So I've always been a sales guy. I started in sales, loved sales, had the opportunity to move into management pretty quickly, eventually learn the difference between leadership and management, and
tell us what your difference is between leadership and management.
Yeah, I think, when I was younger as a manager, I identified my process and my system. And then, I would kind of enforce it, and there was, pride and ego and I had the track record to demonstrate that I knew what I was doing. So,
yeah. You were the big man.
Well, in my head, maybe.
Yeah, a legend in your own mind.
Yes, definitely.
It's your story. You can write it, right?
Right. But I was really kind of the turnaround guy. I would go into the markets, look at what was going on, assess the talent, develop the talent, hire talent. And that time I had to let people go a lot, which I think that's also patience, because most of the time today, I understand that it's not generally the people. It's usually the process that holds people back. So,
yes.
But to me, the biggest difference is, over time you learn that, a manager kind of, even though I was instituting change and driving results and turning markets around, I wasn't really leading and inspiring and, doing the deeper work with people, because I think there's talk about legacy, there's talk about the contribution you make to somebody. My process now is much more relational and it's a deeper connection with the people. So to have, a longer term impact and influence outside of just a work environment.
Well, it sounds like to me you made a shift towards relationships and deeper meaning, to use your words, Paul. What was the defining moment and experience you had that really helped you turn that corner?
Yeah, I would say there was a couple things that were leading towards it. I've always been someone who was relational in nature. I wanted to
Okay.
understand, the people I was working with and accomplish things with the people on the team. So naturally, I that was part of who I was. But I think when I went to Yahoo, I had a role at Microsoft where I was more of an influencer. I was leading a team that was selling our Fox Sports property across 150 Microsoft salespeople, in addition to about 10 Fox Sports salespeople. So none of those people reported to me. And it was our responsibility to make sure that Fox Sports and Microsoft worked very collaboratively. So I was able to build up a team, and we served and influenced, and I just saw the power of service and really leaning in and understanding, we had a great product that we could bring to market, but how did it fit into that person's agenda? How did it fit into what they're trying to do for their client? And how did we provide the resources most effectively to ensure that we would be one of their trusted partners and maintain that? And when I went from Microsoft to Yahoo, there was a gap in the market. They hadn't had leadership for about a year. And, I had learned a lot about leadership. I had learned a lot about teams. I personally, there's a number of assessments that I had been exposed to. I like StrengthsFinder a lot because it's patterns of thought, a little bit of mindset perspective, so I'll use that a lot of times as a way to connect with people because, coming in as a leader from outside, the first thing I want to do is let people know that I really wanted to understand them and value and hear their perspective. So we used that assessment early on through the process with everybody in the office. And it was just a way to start to connect and draw out, hey, I see this in you, so people start to say, oh, wow, he's identifying something I'm good at. He's not looking for things I'm bad at, right?
Right, which is a totally different model because most of the time when we hear from a supervisor or a boss, they're smacking us for something we did wrong. So instead of a sickness model, you were moving to a wellness model, weren't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think even on the other side of Yahoo, as I chose to go and start the consulting business, now you're coming as an outsider, right? And most people think that it's the consultant's job, to identify the weak links and get them off the team, right? So it even became more valuable as a way to connect with people, after that, and to begin to earn trust.
So what you really discovered was that as a leader, you could influence best through relationships and bring someone's best to the table.
Yeah. So what I do really with my process, and this has taken time to learn, early on, I think I might share this with you. I was about a week into one of my consulting, relationships, and another very seasoned consultant, had lunch with me, and he said, I'm not sure you're cut out for consulting. And I was like, I appreciate that, Bob. What would make you say that? And he said, well, you're a little direct. And I was like, I think that's why they paid us. I don't have to tell them what I say, you know what I mean? But he was like, no, the goal is to have as many, customers working with you as possible, not to, infuriate them and have them, so that was helpful.
So it wasn't one and done. Let me come in here and tell you everything you're doing wrong. It was develop a relationship and draw up alongside them. Because let's face it, Paul, most of us are asking the whiff 'em question. What's in it for me? Yeah. And so as a coach or a consultant, when you discover the other person's needs, hopes, dreams, aspirations, desires, however you want to word it, and you draw up alongside them and help them get what they want, that's really how you maximize potential. And that's where the masterpiece reveals, right?
Right. And I think, it's funny, I was having this conversation with our friend Perry, and I think that the thing that I tripped up early on, I mean, certainly there's pride and there's ego, and there's, you see a pathway and you want them to start moving on it, and you the right, absolute way, right? You need more time to listen and learn and make sure, right? But so I would see that, but I was also so passionate about lifting up the people in the organization and helping them find their fit and seeing them grow, that I would almost become a champion for the people at the expense of my relationship with the leader.
Oh, wow.
I was willing to be kind of the hero, right? And take the bullet, right? Even though the leader wasn't really shooting bullets, but it was a little bit of a hero complex. And I realized you can't help these people that you're building relationships with if you lose your influence with the leader, right? So I was a kind of slow receiver back in the day. I took a lot of shots in the head, so it takes me longer to figure some of these things out. Right?
Okay, I understand. Yeah, but
use the influence of the king, so to say.
Well, it's really a balancing act there, right?
Yes, definitely.
And man, I don't know about you, but Jesus was the one who really modeled that. I mean, he was with the people, but he also understood his role as a son of God. So it was son of humanity, son of God, and that balancing act. And that's kind of what I hear you talking about. You know, you want to be with the people, understand the people so you can help maximize the potential of the team. But at the same time, there's a leader. So there's a mission, there's a vision, and there's some core values that one must abide by in order to accomplish the mission.
Yeah. And I would say it's probably the most valuable lesson I learned, over the past 4 years, was how to be a Timothy, and I think that, they talk about everybody needs a Paul in their life, a mentor, a teacher. Everybody needs a Barnabas, right? A brother, a peer, and everybody needs a Timothy, somebody you can invest in and somebody you'll allow to serve you, right? But I think at the same time, we need to be all of those roles in different relationships to others, right? Because there are people I can be a mentor for. There are people I need to be a mentee to. Right. There are people I need others with, right. And just, or just support, just aligned, and what I learned over time was that it was very important for me to not try to usurp the leader because of my own desires to be seen as a great leader, but just to use what I had learned to lift them up in their way, cultivate that Barnabas friendship where I could say anything and they knew that I didn't have a different agenda. Right. And then, mentor other people in the organization and allow them to, help me. So, but I think in the beginning, I lost influence and trust from the top. And as a salesperson, you can't have influence if you demonstrate to somebody that you're not trustworthy.
Yeah, and you've got to have credibility in that relationship so it becomes authentic and transparent, and that's when the real work gets done. What I hear you saying, Paul, is that you really drop alongside the leader, bring the team along, and you're all committed to the mission of the organization, realizing that it's the people who fulfill the mission.
Right. I think, and another challenge I see in business, so I've chosen, private businesses. The leaders I'm working with are Christ followers. I've just, I really only had a business card in the past 2 weeks. You'll see the website when you go there, but it's fresh. I haven't even had it up there in the past. But I think, the leaders that I work with, a lot of them, they've been in private business. They've been in businesses, under my largest client has been about an $80 million business. So they've been smaller sized businesses. And some of these people have been in those businesses for 30 years. And you go in and you say, hey, you understand that this is kind of your leadership style, and you start sharing these insights and information. And there's some difficult conversations because I'll say to them, there's a reason why you're not growing, or there's a reason why we're having turnover, or there's a reason why we're struggling, operationally. And in a lot of these companies, they get to a point where you just have to invest in talent, or you have to develop your talent to get to the next level. And it requires, change of philosophy and commitment. And, that's not my money to spend.
The only people I meet who like change are babies with dirty diapers. So how do you couch the conversation in a Christ-honoring way to talk about change? Because if I've been sitting in the catbird seat, like if this is my baby and I started this company and I've been doing it for 30 years or whatever, how do you honor Christ in someone, respect them, and yet help them see the truth of we need some transformation here for this company to do what you say you want it to do.
That's right. Well, what I do is I listen very carefully when I go in.
Okay.
And I pay attention to what the leaders telling me that their aspirations are, and I pull them down. And it's the way I sold for years. I would always go in and take notes. I'd ask my clients, "Hey, is it okay if I take notes?" That's just how my brain works, right? I'm kind of ADD. If I'm not drawing something, if I'm not taking notes.
So you walk in with a stack of napkins and a pen, and you
no, nice little notebooks. I want them to show that I'm going to go read them again. I'm going to read it back, and I'm going to do something with it, right? But I'm earning trust. So I'll identify in the conversation. I'll say, "It sounds to me like you're saying that these three things, whatever, are the three most important things," because they know what they need to change, right? They know what the issues are. They know where the pain points are. So then I just dig in and I pay attention and I think about that, and I always remind them, these are the three most important things, right? These are the things we're going after, right? Because I know how easy it is to wander, right? To just wander off the path, right? And then what happens once you wander off the path is you begin to wonder why you're not hitting your goals, why you're not getting your objectives, right? So I constantly will remind them in a very kind way. I'll say, "Hey, I'm sorry. I thought that the most important thing in your business was operational excellence to your top 200 customers, because we identified that as the most important thing, right? So what I'm working on here is for that. Do you want me to change your priority?" Right? So I just always remind them of the 1, 2, 3. And when you remind them of your loyalty and your servanthood to the most important things, it's harder for them to push back on you because you're committed, right? And you're trying to align resources to those things. And I use that same framework with the people. As we go through the objectives, we'll say, well, in order to deliver on this, our most important thing, it's very important that our account managers work with our salespeople, work with our purchasing people. And let's think about how that looks. Let's not just talk about collaboration. Let's start collaborating. Let's have the meeting. Let's set the timelines. So you go in and you put the disciplines, and the process underneath the goals and objectives. And then you just start working it.
Now, if I understood you correctly, you said you work primarily with Christian business professionals. Is that right?
Yeah. It's kind of chosen.
Okay. Well, how does faith influence the relationship then when you're reminding them of these three things, that this is mission critical? How does your faith influence those conversations that you're having with them? Do you call to mind certain scriptures or occasions in Jesus' life when he reminded somebody of the main thing?
Well, I think, I was out with one of my clients, and the CEO came in and gave the leaders a book about shepherding, leading the shepherd's way, and he had principles. And so I devoured it. I mean, like I was flying back from the headquarters, and I read it on the plane, and I sent them a note, and I talked about, I said, this is a great book. I love it. I'm a big fan of Psalm 23, right? I said, we talked about it, and I said, how are we bringing that to life in the business today? How is it showing up? It's a great book, but what are we doing with it? How do our people feel that we're guiding them, that we're protecting them? Because we don't want to just be hitting them with the staff. We want to be guiding them along the waters. We want to find, the grass. We want to.
Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. It's not just for whacking me over the head.
That's right. Right. So and I'll bring it back up, because I'll remind them of the aspiration, and I'll remind them of the gap, and I'll let them feel the tension. I'll say, hey, I believe that your desire to do this is genuine. So let's get there. Let's put the processes in place to make people feel like we're getting there. Like let's move. What I mean?
Well, what happens with so many business owners, it seems to me, and CEOs of even large, small businesses, if I can call them that, that are doing 80 to 100 million, maybe 200 million a year, is they're passing fads, they're trends. He picks up a book and reads it. Oh, this is cool. Now we're going to do this. And the people kind of roll their eyes and say, what's the next book going to be 6 months from now? And so what I hear you saying is that you take what we say we want to do and you put processes up under it so that we actually begin to do the good work that's set out there before us.
That's right. And the biggest area that I focus in. When I was at Yahoo, the first thing I did was I asked this woman, Lauren. She was probably the best assistant I've ever had. I hadn't even started yet. And I said, Lauren, do me a favor. I'd love to meet everybody in the office. Right, there's 25 people. I said, schedule a half hour with me, for people on 2 consecutive Wednesdays. And so I just got time. I sat down with them. I asked them some questions. I said, what do you love about the company? What are we doing great? What do we need to change? So I sat down with everybody, and I was able to process, all of that information, and then come into work and arrive, on a certain day. So our first, Monday morning meeting, I was able to play back what I heard, right? And then I challenged them. I said, how are we known today by the rest of the company? What do they say about this office? What do we want them to say, right? And what are we going to produce in the year? What are we going to do, right? So we talked about who we were and what our brand was going to be, right? And then we started a cadence. So we had our Monday meeting, and then I told Lauren that, I said, you have full access to my calendar, but you can't cancel any of my one-on-ones with my direct reports and my salespeople, because as soon as I start canceling those meetings, they'll think that something else is more important. Right? And they didn't like spending the one-on-ones with me in the beginning. They got better, but I used those meetings to understand their accounts, to collect information, to see issues, right? So that I could, elevate them and be an advocate for them and remove things from there, but also just to connect, right? So we had that cadence of accountability. We would talk about in the first meeting, and then we would have the follow-up. And from those one-on-ones, I would also get the best practices for my meetings for the next week. But the goal was to keep people focused on the things that mattered most, and to demonstrate momentum. And then we had a scoreboard. So we had a visual scoreboard where we could track how we were doing. So anybody could see it at any time, how we were progressing. Because I think that without, because we need hope, right? And without
hope and vision, the people perish, right?
Yeah. You have to demonstrate that you see the gaps, and that you're fixing them. Like there's we talk about looking in the mirror and not doing anything, right? Like if we're in a boat and we notice a hole and we say, oh geez, I hope that goes away.
Yeah.
You're not going to make it to the shoreline.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So you gotta fill it.
Ignoring it's not going to work. Yeah. And I picked up your reference there to the James passage where he talks about, someone who looks in the mirror and then walks away and forgets what they look like.
Right.
And that happens so often with Christians in the workplace, right? So how do you remind yourself day in and day out, hey, I'm a Christian? I mean, what kind of spiritual disciplines do you have that keep you rooted and grounded? Because obviously you're a servant leader, you're highly relational, you're humble. What do you do daily that keeps you focused on those main things?
Well, I love the Jesus Calling devotional.
Yes.
I read that, every morning I'm in there.
Me too.
I've been going through Purpose-Driven Life again, second time through, and I think that's so great. But I get up early. My kids make fun of me. I generally am in bed by 10 or 10:30. I get 5 or 5:30, and I'll just have time. I'll have a couple of hours in the morning, and I'm in the Word, meditating on the Word. I'm processing. I'm writing. I think that part of my personality, part of who I am that I suppressed for a long time was a creative side. When I was younger,
Really?
I loved art. I loved storytelling. I loved listening to words, and I suppressed it for a long time in business. I was told you can't make a living as an artist. You can't make a living. I love psychology, right? So I listen. I just try to listen, and I think that one of my friends shared this with me. When God puts something on your heart, sometimes you'll just jump out of the boat and go, right? And he said, but you have to understand that there's a season of deepening and increasing where you go down sometimes and you find the foundation, but you have the passion, you have the platform, you have the foundation, right? I know that, when you think about all the things that compete for our attention, right? You so often have to tear things down to rebuild them, right? To be able to take something and make it bigger, more significant, And I think I shared this with you when I was at Microsoft, and I had that, my kingdom, God's kingdom kind of awakening, and there's a tearing down. So I think, when I think about my sin and the ways that, Satan gets a hold of me, a lot of times they're earthly things that are good, right? They're achievement and determination can very easily become very me-centric and very earthly, because, we're connected to the wrong gods. We're connected to all those little G gods.
That's right. That's right. Most of them are within me too. I'm my favorite idol.
Well, and when I play back, because it would have been easy for me to stay at Yahoo, and there's been sacrifices, but I think that there's been so many things that I've had capacity to do, like my wife and I volunteer for Kids Overcoming Addiction. So we work with kids from 15 to 18 to 19, and some of those kids have ended up in prison. So now I'm visiting, one of my boys in prison, one of the kids came to the program, and we're looking at a prison ministry and some other things there. But it's just, there's so many different things that I wasn't tuned in to that God cared about for a long time. And
oh wow, yeah,
I'm trying to be a better listener.
Well, and when you listen for God's heart, like the way that you do, Paul Flannigan, your heart begins to beat in rhythm with God's. And so you find yourself doing things you never thought you'd do. I mean, did you ever imagine you'd go into a juvenile prison and visit guys that were addicted that you consider your son? I mean,
well, yeah, we were talking to lifers just last week, and you hear these guys' stories, and you hear their heart for change and being able to come back and make a contribution, and our God can reach into any place and turn a heart around.
Yes, and does that. And that's really the heart and soul of masterpiecesales.com, isn't it? That you believe our God is so great that he can reach into anybody's heart and transform it for good. That's beautiful. So the website for Paul Flannigan is masterpiecesales.com. If you want to email him, and I know you will, out of Faith Positive Nation, to learn more about his story, it's paul@masterpiecesales.com. Paul, Faith Positive Nation always wants to know, and I think I got a hint because you mentioned one earlier, about a favorite Bible verse. What's your favorite Bible verse?
Well, Ephesians 2:10 just hit me like a ton of bricks, because, when I was younger, I thought a lot about identity, right? And when Adam and Eve were separated from God, and the veil was put up, they could no longer get their direct identity from God, right? And I think that we turn to so many other things. So when I hear Paul say, we are God's masterpiece, and then created in Christ Jesus, right? Like, we're not our own masterpiece. We can't, it's not a self-help, it's not self-image, right? It's
God help, God image.
Right? To do good works, which he prepared in advance for us to do, right? Like, we're saved for a purpose, and we're saved for a very specific purpose, right? So, when I work with kids, with an addiction issue, whatever, you hear their stories, and you're like, well, the world is not telling you you're a masterpiece.
Anything but.
Yeah, we had a guy whose father wouldn't sign his birth certificate. So talk about not acknowledging your son.
Wow.
Right, and so many of them, but so I love the fact that we can really get a sense of, that we're a masterpiece, that we're unique, and it's a life work. It's the artist's life work. Right? And it's about every single one of us.
You are God's masterpiece. And Paul Flannigan, you are God's masterpiece. And I so appreciate our friendship, my friend. I really do. Our mutual friend, Perry, that Paul referred to earlier, is Perry Rue, our regional leader for Faith Positive in the Hotlanta area. So I'm very blessed to be your friend, Paul Flannigan. And thanks so much for sharing your story today and for reminding each and every one of us that as we're in business, the main thing is the main thing. Right. And that is to be Christ in the workplace and help people see that they are the masterpiece of the master's handiwork. Wow, what a powerful message. I pray God's blessings on you and your wife, on all those guys that you're ministering to. May the Holy Spirit enliven every conversation and really transform hearts there and help them know that the Heavenly Father signs their birth certificate every single day.
Wow. Amen.
And that's beautiful. God bless you, Paul. Thanks so much.
Right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.